Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the 41st Millennium and welcome to the first issue of Warhammer Combat Patrol. Now, if you enjoy this kind of content, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, drop us a comment down below. Whether you're picking up this magazine, whether you're not picking up this magazine, this is somebody that hopefully everybody can enjoy. Now, obviously, this is issue 1, so we have 2 minis and some other gubbins to have. So we get, obviously, 6 of the white, normal, 6-sided dice. We get, obviously, 2 bases for our minis. We get a, I'm going to go through the rubbish bits first, poster, which obviously gives us some information about the old collection, and a big poster that is obviously to do with good old the new edition of Warhammer 40k, or the latest edition of Warhammer 40k, should I say. And we get a double-sided play mat as well. So it's very kind of techy on one side and like a broken building, which, yeah, doesn't look the most fantastic. And like a arid planet on the other side, and when I'm not trashing stuff, it normally helps. Anyway, so fairly straightforward. Going into our minis though, and having a look at those first, obviously you get a Space Marine. So the poster boys of the 41st Millennium, the Space Marines, and more precisely these are meant to be painted in the Ultramarine colour scheme. So we get a Space Marine captain. We also get the big bad for this edition of Warhammer 40k, which is the Tyrannid. So we get a winged Tyrannid Prime mini as well. Pretty damn cool. Now, if you are unaware of what Warhammer Combat Patrol magazine is, then obviously it's a Partworks magazine. It is a Partworks magazine going across 90 issues, so it is quite a long one, 10 issues more than the regular, so 10 issues more than what Stormbringer was. The same amount of issues as what Imperium turned out to be in the end, 10 more than good old Mortal Realms, and 10 more than Conquest. So, the way this magazine is going to work, not only are we going to get the usual stuff, well, we'll get some paint, we'll get some brushes, we'll get loads of minis. They are not going to be focusing just on 2 factions. They are not going to be focusing just on a couple of factions. There is 9 factions in total. We are getting essentially the entire Combat Patrol boxes for 9 different factions, as well as a couple of extra minis along with our paints. So, while it doesn't sound like it's a massive bargain at £10 per issue, when a Combat Patrol box is £100 anyway, when you take into account that you're getting a rule book essentially with it, you are getting stories, so you're getting essentially micro novels, we are getting build guides, paint guides, play guides, and such like that. You are also getting paint. You are also getting a couple of extra minis per faction, and not only that, we get battle mats and some brushes and stuff like that as well. It does work out that you are saving money in the long run, so there is nothing to worry about there. You're just not saving super huge amounts. Obviously, on the first couple of issues, there are some decent savings. So issue 1 is obviously only £2.99 here in the UK. Issue 2 is £5.99, and then it goes to £9.99 from then on. So it is up to you if you want to go about collecting it. Obviously, £10 is not always affordable for everybody, especially for a weekly magazine. It's a little bit pricey, and in all honesty, I can guarantee what will happen. Well, it's happened with every Partworks magazine that they've done for Warhammer since Conquest came out. There will be a new edition of 40k. Can almost guarantee it, because the newest edition of 40k came out before Imperium ended. The newest edition of Age of Sigmar came out before good old Stormbringer ended. So I can almost guarantee it now that the next edition of 40k will come out before this magazine is done. But, and it's a big but, I am looking forward to this magazine. I was on the fence with it a lot of the time. There are some factions I don't really care about. Like, I'm not bothered by Chaos factions generally, especially for 40k, and I'm not bothered by Space Marines. Space Marines are very generic. I will be painting them, I will be building them, and I will still just carry on with it anyway. But I may not keep them, I might try and sell them later on. Who knows? But otherwise, I am looking forward to Tyranids, Leagues of Votan, and I've always wanted to paint Eldar, so I am looking forward to painting them. So, with all that said, obviously, 2 great minis. I will be building these, and I'll paint them up at some point. I don't know when. In between all the Stormbringer minis that I still haven't painted, alongside all the Skaventide minis I haven't painted, and all the countless others. Anyway, we're going to finally go into this week's issue. So, obviously, the first issue. So, obviously, you get a bit of gumph in there, so make sure you don't miss out by subscribing, get it at your news agents, or subscribe directly. You get a free modelling kit, you get issue 3 for free, essentially, with it, which gives you some more control of the Infernus Marines. Obviously, if you are going to subscribe, you get some paintbrushes, you get your modelling kit, you get your first binder for free, you get a mug, and you also get a Primaris Company Champion mini for free if you subscribe directly to it. If you don't, obviously you won't get any of that. There will be extra bits and pieces that may come with the magazine later on, so every additional gold binder, they will pop that charge onto there for you, so you will get charged, I think it's 10 quid for the binder. Sometimes they do extra bits and pieces, so you might get charged for those unless you opt out of them. Entirely up to you. If you are going to subscribe directly though, you can take advantage of a premium subscription. It's an extra £2.50 per issue, so it's not cheap, but you get extra minis. So you get extra minis, so you get the a Dreadnought, you get an extra Tyranid, you get one of the tanks for the Astra Militarum, and stuff like that. So you do get extra minis per faction, apart from Chaos. Chaos is the only one where you don't get an extra mini because we get the Demon Prince, which can be used for the 2 different Chaos factions you get with the magazine. So, entirely up to you how you want to go about doing it and how you want to go about collecting it. Or, if you really want to and you want to pay for postage, you can obviously just, buy it from Forbidden Planet. But you'll be paying postage per issue now. So even if you bulk order them and order them all in advance, you will get charged postage per issue now. So they've kind of cottoned on to how people like to do things. So yeah, that's happened. Anywho, going on. So, in all honesty, we're starting off in the build section, which is a bit unusual for this magazine, these type of magazines. There is a QR code, which you can find your nearest retailer for any of your bits and pieces. So if you are starting with this magazine, you've never done Warhammer before, you're going to need clippers, you are going to need maybe some files or some blades, or if you want, get the you can get like little sanding loops and stuff like that, which you can get different grits of them, so you can get rid of all them mold lines, or if you might want to use a mold line remover, entirely up to you. You are also going to want paints and decent brushes. Now, before we really go into the magazine, I am not going to lie, I have found some brushes that I really quite like and I'm getting used to, and they're not Citadel. Vallejo, get yourself a Vallejo starter set. I can't remember where I got these from. I think it might have been Hobby Workshop. They're available online. They're relatively cheap. I think that was about 12 quid. 3 brushes. You get a fine tip one, you get a flat ended one, which is really good for basing, as well as putting on your shades and such like that, and even dry brushing, and you get a couple of others. So definitely worth having a nosy into. Find some decent brushes, or you can buy whole sets from places like ABC brushes. You can obviously just buy some from Amazon and buy some cheap ones if you're just getting into the hobby and you want to learn the basics. You are also going to need paints. Now, you can wait for the magazine to give you all your paints, or if you're a bit impatient, get yourself some. I would always recommend going with a couple of certain base coats in particular, whether it's Mechanica Standard Grey, Wraithbone, or if you want to go down kind of darker colours, go for say like Corvus Black or Baden Black, you can go down them routes just to undercoat them to begin with and then layer up your paints afterwards. Entirely up to you. Many different ways of doing it. If you're going to follow the magazine, you're not going to have a problem with it though. But otherwise, fairly straightforward, fairly basic. And obviously the magazine is going to kind of hold your hand through all of it, and you will learn as you go. Some minis are push fit minis. Now, the magazine gives you these little icons, which are all kind of detailed here. So whether it's push fit, glue not required, tools required, detailed view, and completed assembly. So every page will have these icons. So for instance, our Captain in Terminator armor is a push fit mini. A good few of the minis that you get in starter sets are push fit minis. So a lot of the Space Marines we're going to get with this set and Tyranids as well are push fit. So you don't need glue, you just need the tools to clip them off the sprue, which is the plastic frame that you see them on. And away you go. Fairly straightforward, fairly easy. One thing the magazine will do at some point is teach you about sub-assemblies. Sub-assemblies, very handy to do, especially for painting small details. So for instance, painting up the head for our Space Marine Captain here. If you want to do his head separate, I fully recommend doing that, because it'll make life so much easier. If you are going to do the head, one thing I would always recommend, either if it's attached to the plastic frame in the correct position and not at the top of the head or something stupid like that. So like he is attached, for some reason his head is attached at the top of his head and at the bottom of his head. I personally would cut that off and use a small hobby drill, or pin vise as they sometimes called. I would put a little hole in there, and you're only going to go a couple of millimeters into it, and then in all honesty I use a paper clip, put a bit of glue on the paper clip to hold it in place, stop it wobbling around, and you can attach it to a cork like I have with this head for the good old Stormcast Eternal Night Quester from the Skaven type box, and then you can paint it up that way, so you can get all your detail in and do it in sub assemblies. It can make life a lot easier, in all honesty. So some minis you're not going to want to do that though. Some minis you can just literally get going with and crack on with, entirely up to you how you want to go about doing it. Then you've got your build guide for the Tyranid Prime as well, which I must admit I am looking forward to building. I do like the Tyranids. They look pretty damn cool, and there are some really good colour schemes that I've seen online for them, so it's definitely worth having a crack at. Going forward though, obviously we get more information in this magazine. So we have a welcome to the 41st millennium. So the galaxy burns as colossal space battleships duel in the heavens above. Armies on countless worlds battle for resources, glory, or simply for survival. Hope, enlightenment, and progress have been scoured away by the flames of endless conflict. All that remains is hatred, rage, and war on an unimaginable scale. So, Warhammer 40k is obviously a sci-fi series. Various stories in there. There are factions. There are many different factions as well, and there are some really cool ones. So, really good stuff. We have information about the different kind of factions you have. You have the Imperium, which covers a certain subset of factions, well, a certain group of factions, should I say, whether it's the Astra Militarum, which are your generic humans, the Adeptus Sororitas, the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Adeptus Astartes, which is your Space Marines, Adeptus Custodes, and a couple of others are mentioned all within the Imperium and are parts of basically the humanity kind of forces. There is Chaos, which is obviously Chaos. So there are several different factions of Chaos, whether it's Chaos Space Marines, whether it's demons and such like. Loads of pretty cool stuff. And then there are the Xenos races, which are your alien races, whether it's the Orcs, Leagues of Votan, Eldari, and Drukhari. There's several others as well that I'm completely forgetting. Lintau, your Tyranids, and such like. They are the alien races, they all have their own agendas and such. So, loads of information for you. And this magazine is going to walk us through all that information over time. Then you get more information. So you get information about the Space Marines themselves. They are the Angels of Death, so they are not regular humans. They are adapted and they are genetically modified, and they are bigger, tougher, and a lot more durable. They also live fairly prolonged lives, so they are kind of like demigods in a way. There are not countless ends of them or anything like that, so they are not an endless species, but there are a lot, and they are tough as hell. So there are different chapters, whether you want to go down different colour schemes. The magazine will want you to do Ultramarines, which is your standard blue and gold armour. It is up to you if you want to go down that colour scheme. You can, if you want to, go down many different routes, whether you want them to be yellow, pink, blue, green, purple. If you want to, you can do whatever you want. It is your choice, it is your hobby, it is your faction. So enjoy yourself. And that is my main tip with it. I'm not going to read through all of these bits as well, by the way. So you'll get information about all of it and how each thing works as well. Your Tyranids. So Tyranids are the kind of the bestial monsters. Think of the Xenomorphs from Alien crossed with the bugs from Starship Troopers. That's the best way I can describe them. The Tyranids are bonkers. They are nuts. They are horror kind of personified. So the best way to describe the Tyranids that we've seen in, say, video games, if you've ever played No Man's Sky and you've picked up one of the, I think it's the humming egg sac things, occasionally you get attacked by the swarm, which is the alien race that are just vicious, horrible little things. They actually look kind of like the Tyranids in a lot of ways, so fairly similar. The Tyranids also have an ally, which is the Gene Stealer cults, and yeah, you'll find out a bit more about them later on. But otherwise, fairly decent. There are some very, very cool looking units within the Tyranid army as well, so definitely worth looking out for. And yeah, get to enjoy yourself, which is really cool. Then we're moving on to a collect section. So the collect section is going to go through all the different minis that we're going to get, so we get to name minis as well. So it is your army, so you name them however you want. The magazine, I have not looked, may give us some tables where we roll a dice and you'll get a name generated from. So it's a kind of like a roll to generate your name. So obviously you get it here as well. So if you don't want to do that and you want to find more unique names, or just name them after your friends if you really, really want to, or people you like, you can do that if you want. But you can find name generators online. So your choice how you want to go about doing it. Moving on though, we have a page obviously for the Tyranid Prime as well, so you do get to name them as well because they have unit designations essentially. However, a little bit weird, most of them aren't going to be named. You do get data sheets on the back of each as well, so your data sheets give you your stats, so it gives you your movement, your wounds, such like that as well, and how kind of vulnerable they are and everything like that, so how much kind of damage they can take and what role you're going to need to stop them being damaged. You also get your information about how their weapons work and such like that, whether it's their range, whether it's melee or anything like that. You are going to need all of these data sheets because they are going to come in very, very handy as you play through the game. Carrying on, obviously we have a play section, so obviously this is not just collecting little toys, it is a game to play. The way the magazine works, it does hold your hand for playing, so it is very, very good for that. So if you have never played Warhammer 40k before, the magazine will walk you through how to do it, which is exactly what you need for a beginner. So this is just the start. So one battle will get us going. It is literally a 1v1. You're going to have them facing off against each other and they're going to just, beat the living hell out of each other. Fairly straightforward, fairly easy, and as we go more and we get more minis, they will give us more and more, and you'll add more and more to it. You also get on this back page wound markers where you can cut out and use if you want to. If you are going to use them, personally I would stick these down onto a piece of card because paper gets damaged very, very easily. So a bit of card on there, brilliant, happy days. Just make sure it's blank on the other side, maybe. Otherwise, you can find wound markers that you can buy online, and you can get going with that. Now, the other thing with this page, obviously it shows us the entire collection, so obviously a lot of minis there. So some really, really good ones. So really cool ones to look out for. Obviously, we have the Oryx, so we have a Killer Cam, we have Death Copters as well. We have the good old Gene Stealer Cults, which have a couple of vehicles in there, which are really awesome. We have the Astra Militarum, we have the Eldari, we have the I think it's Thousand Suns, we have the Chaos Space Marines, we have the Tyranids, which obviously are really, really cool as well, and we have things like the Leagues of Votan in there as well. So really, really good stuff. We also will only be getting them paints, but they are the basic colours you're going to need. So you get a few shades in there. We're going to get, from the looks of that's Astro Granite, which is a texture paint, so we'll get a texture tool. We get a basic brush, which in all honesty is absolutely rubbish, and I would chuck it away if I were you. If you're starting with this, you're not going to want to chuck it away straight away. But if you have already got decent brushes, yeah, chuck that basic brush away, or just use it for putting on PVA glue if you need to. And we'll get a couple of the other brushes as well. So we'll get a dry brush and we'll get a detail brush as well from the newer Citadel colour range. So lots to look forward to. Then, in all honesty, we are going to move on. So, and wrap this video up. So, issue 2 gives us 3 of the Von Ryan's Leapers, which are pretty damn cool looking Tyranids, if I do say so myself. I like these guys, they're really cool. We'll get more information, we'll get some pretty cool little bits as well. This issue should be out in 2 weeks' time, so there is normally a 2-week gap between issue 1 and issue 2, and then it goes weekly. So, pretty cool, pretty interesting, really good units. Issue 3 gives us our Infernus Marines, and we'll get some essential cards as well, which are very, very handy for playing Combat Patrol. So, these will give us some little bits to utilise. But that is it. So, first issue, it's pretty decent. It's pretty chunky. It's got a bit of weight to it. There will be issues where we don't get as much information. We'll get some really rubbish issues, I can imagine. Generally always happens with a Partworks magazine. I am going to go through the entire collection. I'm not doing it monthly. I've decided to go weekly with it again. So you'll get a weekly video from me. Obviously next week there may not be a video because there's no magazine to be done. But we'll discuss more options to do with this magazine over time. The second issue actually comes out when I'm on holiday, so I will not be picking it up straight away, and you'll see the video later in the week. But otherwise, videos should always be out on a Wednesday unless the issue is missing, which happens every bloody time. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there. But otherwise, if you're a Warhammer 40k fan, welcome to the channel, pretty much. You may have stopped by before with the last magazine, you may not have. But otherwise, if you're new to the magazine, join us on this journey. I'm actually going to try and learn how to play the game, which I didn't do with Imperial magazine. I'm going to try and learn it with the magazine, so we will discuss how it's going over time. Anyway, I have kept you far too long. Thank you very, very much for watching, and yeah, I will see you very soon. Bye bye now.